Hello to everyone. Welcome. Welcome to a new broadcast on putting on the mind of Christ, the inner work of Christian spirituality. We start a new week, and I hope for the ones who following me and putting on the mind had a good weekend. You are loved with an everlasting love. This is your pastor, Yeti. Today I'm going to talk about the vision, logic, consciousness. Vision, logic, consciousness is the highest of the three mental levels of consciousness. It is the consciousness of many great artists, writers, internationals, financiers, scientists, and philosophers. Vision, logic's primary characteristics are the identification of the self with the abstract mind and the ability to think from many different perspectives. Vision, logic, consciousness is global in its interest in and concern for other persons. It is capable of grappling with global problems beyond the ability of any one nation or society to solve. Vision, logic, consciousness, however, can also have its downside in the form of considerable inner anguish. More and more, the leadership in many fields is moving to this level of consciousness. This social movement, however, is seen as threatening and is being opposed by many Christians. Fundamentalists of every denomination, whose awareness remains at the mythic level. For those who are coming in for the first time, it is very important to start with the beginning of this study of putting the mind on Christ, because we're working through levels and explaining everything, how it is developed over the years and ages. Individual consciousness development. At the vision logic level of consciousness, the self is fully identified with the abstract mind. Like great thinkers such as Albert Einstein, William Shakespeare, Thomas Jefferson, or Theodore Roosevelt, we are not only capable of abstract reasoning, but are capable of thinking many different perspectives, integrating them and putting them together in new and surprisingly creative ways. We have learned to transcend the pitfall of rigid mental ideologies and isms. Our mind roams free of such limitations. Since we can see and understand many different perspectives, we may be capable of producing universally appealing works of art, music, literature, or philosophy. We may be capable of negotiation a treaty between many different nations, or putting together systems of international business. Finance, or telecommunications. At this level, we are not all geniuses. As always, and as is the case at every level, basic competence at seeing and integrating many mental perspectives is all that is required. As Wilber points out, even the chieftain of a primitive tribe might rise to this level by learning to handle the competing interests of tribal factions with different perspectives, or by conducting successful negotiations with neighboring tribes. Paradoxically, as is also the case at every higher level of consciousness, we are more grounded than we were at merely rational level. At the rational level, we can become so enamored of a particular ideology. For example, that we live our lives all in our heads. This is not the case as the vision logic level. To get to this level, once again, as is the case with all the higher levels, more of our unconsciousness, that is, repressed emotions as well as higher abilities, must be brought into awareness and integrate into the consciousness. The vision logic level is the level of the integrated human personality and will be measured as such on the standard psychological personalities tests. It is the first level of consciousness at which it can be said that we have successfully integrated body, emotions, and mind. Because this level is one of personalities integration, Wilber calls it the centaur, after the mythical beast that was half human and half horse. In terms of spirituality and the understanding of the scriptures, at this level we appreciate the fact that the scriptures can be read on many different levels. We will begin to appreciate and understand how the scriptures use the mind-body symbolism employed by Jesus, St. Paul, and the four evangelists, as, for example, Jesus' constant references to seeing and hearing. At the vision logic level, we now have a global perspective. We no longer define the self in the narrow terms of race, color, national origin, sectarianity understood, religion, gender, sexual orientation, national citizenship, or belief in a particular ism. We are all these things, but we primarily see the self as a simple human being, one of almost 6 billion on this planet, and see our mission as service to all. In accordance with reason's own universality, we seek the good of all humanity. As a result, we are tolerant of and genuinely interested in persons of other cultures, religions, and races. We appreciate other philosophies and perspectives. We see all persons as free citizens in a global society and seek to maximize the freedom for everyone as fully as possible through universal education. Planetary economic integration, global communications, and environmental safeguards, increased democratization of governments, adherence to international law, and in defining the right of every human being to make their own moral choices. So far, the vision logic level may sound wonderful, and it is wonderful in many ways. Psychologically, we are an integrated personality. Inwardly, we enjoy a great deal of freedom compared to the levels below. In terms of worldly career, at this level, we usually have no problem manifesting creative employment for ourselves. We generally work at what we love to do and find great fulfillment in carrying out our vision. But all is not rosy. The vision logic level has also been called the existential level by the many modern philosophers who have described it. Philosophers like Kierkegaard, Camus, and Sartre. It can be, on the negative side, a level of profound angst and inner unrest. Part of the reason for this, ironically, is exactly the above described success of this level in terms of the world and the achievements of this world. More and more we have been there, done that. As a result, the world begins to lose its glamour. We have done all the things that brings immortality, in a worldly sense. We may have achieved great fame, may have produced immortal works of art, may have buildings and institutions named after us thanks to our financial largesse and benefactors. We may have degrees and honorary degrees galore. We may have children and grandchildren, all of whom have graduated from prestigious universities. We may be on a first-name basis with celebrities and movers and shakers in a variety of fields of human endeavor. But we know that nonetheless we are going to die, and that none of these immortality projects can undo that fact. Even worse, even though we may expend countless hours and week working for the good of all, many of us at this level have often lost God. We know that no outside sky God, the God that consoles many millions at the levels of consciousness below, is going to save us from diseases, old age, or death. Where was God at Auschwitz? We may ask. For many at this level, God is dead. And we may know of no other God to replace the one that has been lost. As a result, despite all our outside successes and achievements, we may be, and often are, in deep inner agony. We often struggle in vain to discover meaning in our lives and suffer profoundly when such meaning cannot be found. And if things go wrong, our business goes bankrupt, our political party loses office, our spouse or children are lost to cancer or a car accident, we can fall into such depression that suicide is a danger. In spite of this angst, most of us this level carry on, trying somehow to make this world better for our children and grandchildren. As we near the end of the vision logic level of consciousness, we begin to transcend the mind itself. We begin to become aware of our rationality and begin to see the mind itself and its thinking as an object. This means we are, to some extent, beginning to locate the self beyond the mind. We begin to identify the self with that part of us that transcends body, emotions, and mind. The part of self that observes these first three parts as an inner witness. The integrated human personality, body, emotions, mind, begins to be seen as a whole by this inner witness as we become more and more detached from the space-time personality itself. We begin to move into the next level of consciousness, the psychic. Cultural conscious development. In terms of culture's evolution, the vision logic level of consciousness lies in the future, though in historical terms, in the not too distant future. Most of the people on this planet are only now moving into or trying to master the rational level. Nevertheless, in the highly educated and interconnected circles of the world, the vision logic level is becoming increasingly commonplace. It has been said, for example, that 90% of history's greatest scientists are living today, and the same could be said of many other fields. Much of the planet's leadership is now rapidly moving into this level of awareness, giving the planetary scoop of so many of today's problems. It is probably not a moment too soon. Currently, people at this level are rising to the top of corporations, government, the church, finance, telecommunication, and other fields that demand not only intellectual creativity, but also much practical wisdom and common sense. Often, this worldly success brings with it financial rewardness and perhaps fame and external power as well. Because the visual logic level of awareness is one of integration, the culture. That visual logic awareness will be concerned with wholes. Global integration in the finance and politics, holistic approaches to medicine and systems theory in the sciences or in the sciences. It's not sciences, sorry, sciences. This movement does not only alarm people at the national level. By and large, they are willing to move to the global society or are willing to be led there. But it is terrifying for the millions of people still operating at the mythic level. People at the mythic level still want the world to adopt their worldview and have no intention of having their parochial perspectives, whether national, religious, racial, sexual, or otherwise, being seen as one of many. These are the fundamentalists of every sort throughout the world. They exist often in dominant positions in every religion and in every country. many of them under the directions of politicians and religious leaders who share or exploit their worldview, have begun and organized oppositions to the emerging planetary culture, sometimes ironically using the latest communications technology. For these people, the world is literally going to the devil. More enlightened politicals and religious leaders throughout the world have their hands full trying to keep these frightening souls from violence. There has been violence already, and there may be a lot more of it. But, in the end, vision, logic, consciousness will prevail. Spirit demands it. Christ demands it. For it is the Christ unfolding in history. If you hear all that, I think a lot, and I hope so, gives more clarification. Sometimes how we see things, how we experience things, and how others giving the view and think. So, may it help us to put on the mind of Christ. That's the most important of all. Let us pray that the mind of Christ is our only goal in life to achieve, allowing the Holy Spirit to guide us in wisdom and knowledge and understanding. May God bless you and protect you. May He keep you from all harm. And may His light shine upon you and keep you safe. God bless. And this is your Pastor Yeti. Bye-bye.